Coming to you with another Classic Movie Monday, and yes, the next Indiana Jones movie is called The Temple of Doom. Now, this one in particular is a little bit different from the first Indiana Jones movie. Reason being is that I think it has a little bit more of action in it, more suspense in that sense as far as with the plot. It seems like that they do try to, Spielberg does kind of try to throw a little bit more at you than the original really did. I mean, at least for me. I mean, I felt like constantly something was happening for the most part. And I think it does try to focus more on the protagonists. And again, it's interesting because this movie actually has a little bit more protagonists than the original film, where in the original it just focuses more on Indiana Jones and the villain. And the villain isn't really necessarily so big in this movie. I mean, his screen time is very limited. But for the most part, the villain is there. It's just he's not really given any development, or he's not really that interesting so much, as he is just supposed to be kind of that menacing or supposed to carry that menacing presence on screen. I mean, that's really, I think, all what Spielberg wanted him to do, and he does that. He does succeed. For the most part, I felt that this movie had some good parts in it that I felt like maybe were in some way, shape, or form kind of an improvement, and then in other areas I think they just kind of felt a little flat. Again, and this is just going to be from how I perceived the film after first watching it. So basically the plot revolves around, first there's Indiana Jones, and he gets involved with another adventure in the beginning. Again, similar to the first film, where you see like there's an adventure that's sort of ending on his part, and you see how he comes in contact with like the main characters within this sort of transitioning from the end of one adventure to the beginning of another. It seems like Spielberg wanted to do that same kind of formula where the plot unravels with like Indiana Jones somehow being really cool and being able to finish an adventure and then start on another one. And basically that's how this movie starts out, and then you're introduced to the other two main characters. One is by the name of Short Round, who is a little boy, a little Chinese boy, and Willie Scott, or Wilhelmina Scott, who is a dancer slash singer slash kind of wannabe actress, who ends up performing in the beginning. And literally it was so strange because at first I thought it was because she was singing in a different language. At first I thought, oh no, did my grandpa give me the wrong one? Because she was just speaking in a different language, and then I realized, oh, okay, it's alright. It's everything else is in English. It's just that one song she's just singing in another language. So, just be kind of prepared, because this movie kind of starts off not like how you would expect an Indiana Jones movie to start off. Like with the first one, you can kind of say, okay, yeah, that's Indiana Jones. Yeah, you know, you're in the jungle. You're somewhere in a, you know, a jungle-like or a rugged sort of location. But this one completely starts off different, and as it starts in a like sort of a nightclub slash restaurant. And it's sort of it's just sort of odd how that it already starts off kind of different from the first movie. And I think that was sort of Spielberg's intention, was to sort of make certain things different so that it doesn't feel like it's trying to copy what the first one did. So just be prepared. You know, you might feel like a little bit off when you first get into it, because that's how I felt, because I was just sitting there going, is this really an Indiana Jones movie? Did I put on the right one? And then it's like, oh, okay, it is the right one. Haha. All right, I didn't mess up on that. So that's basically how the sort of plot goes. But the bulk of this plot that you have to understand is, before in the first movie we had, you know, sort of the Middle Eastern locations, and we dealt with with the sort of culture and history of that area. Now it's in a different area. Indiana Jones goes from China to India, so basically this is like Asia, and this is part of sort of like Asian culture, and so you're going to get sort of an Indian legend, and you're sort of going to get something mysterious, again similar like the Ark, and these happen to be in the form of stones, and basically one of these stones belongs to a village in India that they happen to come across, and I guess apparently that Indy sort of is sort of fond of, you'll kind of see how he sort of has feelings for the people there, and he can speak the language. So for the most part, you kind of get a sense of that this isn't really necessarily so much about him really in competition with someone just to find something. It's more of just trying to find something in order to help these village people, because basically what happens is that these village people, they have this rock and this stone, and the stone has said to according to the village people, according to like one of the leaders, it's very helpful because it gives them good crops, and they say it's supposed to be sort of divinely inspired, like, and you'll see this later, how Indiana Jones sort of explains the story of how Shiva went down to this one particular person called Sakkara, but there's many theories as to who Sakkara really is, but basically it's there's more than one stone, but they're all called the Sakkara stones. And now I want to drift into something that is part of history, so you can get a sense of what Sakkara is, so there's no more confusion, and this is the only part that's going to be pertaining to history, and it's going to be read from my encyclopedia. So basically, according to my encyclopedia, Sakkara, also spelled Shakara, is a philosopher and theologian, most renowned exponent of the Advaita Vedanta school of philosophy, from whose doctrine the main currents of modern Indian thought are derived. He wrote commentaries on the Brahma Sutra and the principles of the Upanishads, affirming his belief in one eternal unchanging reality, Brahman, and the illusion of plurality and differentiation. Tradition says that Shiva, one of the principal gods in Hinduism, was Shakara's family deity, and that he was by birth a Sakata, or worshipper of Sakati, the consort of Shiva, and female personification of divine energy. So from what I could read to you, the basic gist that you have to understand is just that he's just an important inspiration to Indian thought, and the reason why he's tied in is, and why they are his stones, is because they were given to him too by Shiva, by this supposedly sort of god or deity, and these stones somehow possess some magical supernatural powers, again similar like the Ark. So you do see sort of the parallels here to the original if you chose to watch the first movie. So basically that's the gist of what they have to do. They have to go out and find the missing stone, one of the missing stones that the villagers have said is to help them, and also the kids, because apparently the person or the people who stole the stone from the village people also stole a bunch of the kids from the village as well. And you will see in the plot what they're using the kids for, and all of this, and how all of this stuff will end up falling into place. You will see the Bangkok, I want to make sure I pronounce it. Sorry, Bangkok Palace. It almost sounded like they were saying Bangkok Palace, and I thought that's in China, right? Or in Bangkok or Thailand. That doesn't make sense. But it's Bangkok, like Pan, Kot and Kot, Palace, and basically the villagers say that around that area is where they took all the kids, and they think that that the Indy and these two other people, as they are getting out of this other journey that they just happened to finish up with, they think that they're sort of like a calling from Shiva, the deity, which I've explained how that person historically relates to the Sankara. So basically, they think that they're sort of this calling, these three people, the little Chinese boy, Willie, and Indiana Jones. So Indiana Jones kind of takes this upon himself and says, okay, I'll do it. And the other two, because sort of this relationship that Indiana Jones has with the kid is I think really good, actually. I liked their sort of relationship that they had for the most part. Their relationship, I think, was relatable. But basically how he gets involved is because Indiana Jones kind of takes him under his wing, and it is explained if you just listen to the dialogue why that is. And you kind of already see how Willie comes in the beginning, and how they end up in India, and then how that plot just kind of goes from there. And then they realize what's happening to the kids and what the stones are being used for, and it involves sacrifice, it involves lots of chanting, involves voodoo dolls, or one voodoo doll at one point, hypnotizing, just a bunch of crazy stuff. And Spielberg throws this literally at you, and sometimes it's sort of like it gets to be sometimes so I guess maybe entrancing at points that it's kind of hard to go back. Okay, what's really the plot now again? And I think that's what this movie is good at doing for the most part. And yeah, it's just more adventure, I felt, just more interaction between characters, a little bit more comedical. I think Spielberg was trying to make this a little bit more funnier than the other one, or than the previous one, which at times I think it's okay. I mean, I chuckle a bit, but I don't necessarily like laugh like my pants off, It's okay humor, but it's not completely spectacular. But basically that's the plot in a nutshell. Just Indiana Jones trying to get this stone back, trying to get the kids back somehow. And you'll see how all that unravels in the plot, because I don't really want to give too much away if you haven't seen this movie. So that's basically how the plot works. Now the characters. Short Round, or the Chinese boy. The Nostalgia Critic, it's funny, and it's funny that I bring up the Nostalgia Critic again, because I just did a whole video on him yesterday. But I just wanted to bring up that he did mention something about the kid being a little bit annoying, or like the accent I guess he found obnoxious. I would be lying if I'd say that yeah, it may maybe rub some people the wrong way. For me, it wasn't so bad. I mean, I don't know. I think the nostalgia critic tries to maybe over exaggerate, and I think he did kind of over exaggerate with this one because I don't think the kid's really that annoying. I think it's just his accent that maybe might bother some people, because he does have sort of a kind of a thick accent, and the accent may just be, it might just be a little bit more obnoxious. But also it's the fact, you know, that he's a kid too, on top of that, and kids by nature, they are kind of obnoxious, but to me, I didn't really find this kid that annoying. I actually found him to be, you know, rather useful. I mean, he did do a lot of stuff within the plot. I mean, he did try to escape whatever situation he was in. He did try to help Indiana Jones. He was that good kind of kid character. I mean, and he wasn't perfect, and I liked that. He seemed like a real kid for the most part. And he would do what a lot of kids would do, I think. I think kids do sometimes over-exaggerate things and say, look over there, you know, or da-da-da-da. It's kind of understandable. I mean, I think that's just nitpicking. I mean, I literally don't think that his character was that obnoxious. I mean, and I don't even think he was a damsel sort of in distress. The nostalgia critic mentions at one point that he's somehow in distress, and to me, I don't understand that. I mean, I understand if somebody is like trying to get your attention, and he does kind of try to do that in the film, because, you know, he is really loyal to Indiana Jones. I mean, they do try to establish this sort of, I don't want to say a father-son kind of a deal, but sort of a mentor. Like like Indiana Jones is sort of like the teacher, and the kid is like the student or pupil. It's sort of like that. I mean, that's how I see it for the most part. And they do have some like cutesy nice moments together where you feel like, you know, Indiana Jones really does care for this kid. And for the most part, I didn't really find him so obnoxious, because he was contributing to something, and he was trying to get out of the situations that they were in, and he was trying to be of a help, and he just did a lot of stuff, and he did a lot of stuff on his own. Like, he didn't call for Indiana Jones, you know, to help him or save him. He did a lot of stuff on his own, and that's what I find what makes partly a good character in these kinds of movies. In adventure movies, you have to have characters that don't really necessarily rely on each other. Not saying that you can do that, but the point being is you have to make them sort of independent, so that they're not just set up to, I don't know, be just to be saved, because you have to make them, it makes them more interesting if you do make it so that they can find ways to escape. And he does use his intellect. He's a really smart kid, I mean, for his age. And apparently, from what the Indiana Jones story of what he said and how he met the child was basically, you know, poor and anything, but he turns out to be a really smart kid, and he does use his smarts. He does try to help Indiana Jones. He is, you know, he is that kind of good kid sidekick. And yes, he can be, you know, it's maybe because of the voice. It might have to do with the fact that it comes off maybe really thick, because maybe sometimes when he is yelling, it may sound, the sound may not be appealing to people's ears, and you know, the fact that he says, oh, look over there, oh, look over there. I mean, that's really typical childlike behavior. I mean, I see kids do that all the time. I mean, he's literally a kid. He's literally what a kid is. Kids like to point out things, and kids like to get adults to pay attention. kids like to do that because they want to be involved. They want to try to contribute to something. And I felt like this kid was really invested in really trying to contribute to the whole story, and contributed a lot to helping Indiana Jones sort of save the day. I thought he was fun. Again, the accent, for me, I think Nostalgia Critic is just overreacting to the accent, because, I mean, for me, yeah, the accent's a little bit it's just, I don't want to say it's thick like you can't understand what he's saying, but it's thick in the sense of the voice and how he talks. And I think it's just the fact that he's just a kid, and for the most part I think he did a good job of trying to pull off what he could pull off as a kid actor. And the actor that plays him, I want to make sure that I get his name right, Jonathan Ke Quan, basically. And he plays the kid, and you know, I didn't think that he was so bad. I thought he was actually really a decent character from what I could tell. And then just having, you know, somebody just show clips of certain parts where he's saying Indy this or Indy that, you know, and it's not so much as he wanting him to save him. He's doing it to sort of warn him, to make him aware of things, and that's what kids do. I mean, kids do that all the time. I mean, I've been around kids, and I know that they try to get your attention, and they try to make you aware of things, because they want to look out for their adults. They want to feel like they belong with the adult. And, you know, when the adult's in danger, they'll stand by the adult. And I thought it was almost really cute. At one point, he doesn't want to, like, hurt Indiana Jones, but he knows that he has to. And it totally explains itself when you just watch the movie. But then when he, like, burns him at one point, it literally hurts him that he did that. And he's like, and then he almost cries, like, Indy, I love you. And I'm just like, oh, poor kid. So, I mean, can the accent maybe rub people the wrong way and get people sucked out of the film? Yeah. But for me, I was okay with it. I mean, it wasn't so bad of an accent, and I don't think it was so bad of an annoying voice. It sounded very just childlike. It just sounded really kiddish. But even though he did have that really kiddish accent of a spoiled brat, he still wasn't a spoiled brat. He still acted in the best of interest for everybody else, and he was a decent, solid kid character. I mean, for the most part. I mean, again, you know, he does have, like, the little, you know, selfish moments where he's kind of like, haha, I beat you, and, you know, all those stuff. But that's just typical kid behavior, and I think that's very relatable to kids. And I think in particular, kids will probably like this one because they can identify with the kid character. But yeah, that's really all I can say about Short Round, pretty much. Because, again, I didn't really understand. I thought that was just a complete over-exaggeration. I don't even know why he was put as a damsel in distress. He's not a damsel in distress. He literally, if you watch the movie, he does stuff, and he contributes. And literally, at one point, he is holding fire flames, and he puts fire on the main character, okay? You know, some kids would just sit in a corner and cry the whole time. Or be like those Indian kids. You know, he tries to escape, and, you know, he tries to use his wits. And I was wondering why none of the Indian kids who were being held hostage could figure that out, and you'll see how that unravels in the plot. But he's a smart kid. He knows his stuff, and perfectly presented, for the most part. At least in my opinion. I mean, I thought he was a decent character, and I really liked the relationship between him and Indiana Jones. I thought it was cute. Now let's talk about Willie. Oh, Willie. Oh, Wilhelmina. Oh, Willie Scott. I guess that would be her full name. Oh my. This one is where I kind of lean to agreeing a little bit with Nostalgia Critic, is that she is supposed to be kind of the damsel in distress in this movie. She is supposed to be the female protagonist, but again, she is the little bit more of the damsel in distress. But she doesn't scream indie as much, and I thought that was interesting. I thought out of all the things, you know, you could have made a damsel in distress do, she doesn't really scream indie that much. I mean, she doesn't scream for him, but she just screams in general. Like she's just really loud. At times she can be a little bit obnoxious, like really acts very over-exaggerately to the surroundings that she's in. Like when she's in the fort or in the jungle and she's like seeing all these animals, all of a sudden she's like just completely freaked out. And Indiana Jones and the kid are just like acting completely normal, and she's just, you know, going off crazy. I think Spielberg meant for her to be sort of the comic relief aspect to everything, because everything that happens to her is just pure like, haha, you know, like, you fell off the elephant, you know. You know, you have to watch people partake in eating disgusting food, you know. It's just that kind of a humor, and sometimes it's okay with me, but then other times I'm like, it's not really that funny. But for the most part, I think just the problem that I had with her was not really so much that she screamed or that she was constantly or like that the reactions that she had were just really like not realistic or just completely like overblown. It was not only that, but I think the reason why she bothered me so much is just how selfish she was, because literally she is like so selfish. And the odd thing is that it seemed like Indiana Jones liked her more than the girl in the first movie. And I found that to be so odd, because they share like 2 kissing scenes. And then in the original movie, I don't remember even seeing like 1 kiss at all. And like literally no tension between the characters in the first movie so much. I mean, it is kind of there, but for a lot of the time they're actually separate, because again, in the original tale she does get kind of captured and she sort of becomes separated from where Indiana Jones is and what he's doing. So you don't really see them that much together. But in this movie, these 3 characters, they're just solid together practically throughout the entire thing, for the most part. So again, another thing to consider as well, and I think just her selfishness is the thing that really irked me, because she kept saying like, oh, I'm an actress, I shouldn't have to, you know, do this, and, you know, oh, I don't want to eat this, you know. And it really shows the contrast between her and Indiana Jones' character, because Indiana Jones is like surrounded by like poor people all the time when he goes traveling, and she's just so removed that it's really hard to kind of, I guess, like her in this setting, because she's not a character that's meant for this kind of a movie, and for us to find likable, I guess, because I mean, she seems more of like that city girl who likes her luxury, and when that luxury is sort of taken away and you're sleeping around bugs and snakes and stuff, yeah. And you know, she just, I'll admit that she doesn't do the screaming for indie thing so much. She does it a couple of times, but for the most part, it wasn't, I think, as over-exaggerated as was in the first movie, which was kind of strange. But again, she's kind of used as the damsel in distress. At one point, she's used as a sacrifice. Yeah, and I really don't understand. The problem is I didn't really understand Indiana Jones and her relationship. It just seemed like, I just don't know how somebody like him, it seemed like he couldn't stand her for the most part. But then at other points it's like, oh, I really like you. Okay, and it kind of, that relationship I think was kind of off. For the most part. I mean, she's nice to the kid, But her relationship with Indy was just kind of off. But I think out of all of the relationships that I've seen so far in Indiana Jones, the best to me is the kid in Indiana Jones. I thought that was handled well. His relationship with the first girl, the thing is they're not really together most of the time. And when they are, it's during like the action scenes, and they don't really get so much dialogue together. You just know that they have history, and that's it pretty much. And then they go on the adventure, and then they get split up, and then they finally come back together again. But in this, they're all together throughout the entire thing, so again, allows for more development at least. And I liked him and the kid. I mean, I thought him and the kid were, I think if you took Willie out, I mean, it wouldn't have changed much, to be honest, for me at least. Because she doesn't seem to really do much except to kind of provide the movie with something to laugh at and something to, you know, use as like a damsel in distress. But was I bothered by her? Not really. But again, her kind of selfish attitude and her whole personality wasn't really that appealing to me for the most part. And yeah, I think she did kind of complain a lot and, you know, wanted her luxury and all that stuff, and it just didn't click with me, and I didn't really get behind so much her character. But the Indiana Jones and the kid, I just really liked their relationship. And I thought that was the best out of like all the relationships that I've seen in Indiana Jones. Now, you do have a nice team up. You do have a nice team up between him and the kid. However, I think that comes at a price. And I think that has to come at the price with the villain. Now, the villain in this movie is basically a priest who is sort of orchestrating this whole plot with the kids and with the stones. And you'll see how that all plays in as you just watch the movie. But his name is Molaram, and he is played by Amarish Pun? I apologize, I might be pronouncing that incorrectly. But all he does is kind of just be this, oh, how do you say it? He's like this creepy, odd, crazed villain, pretty much. He's like kooky on sort of like that Aztec kooky level. You know, these priests that would like get joy out of, you know, showing off like body parts, and yeah, just kind of a really just weird dude. He does the acting well. I mean, the guy who did the acting was good, but the character is so over the top, you know, evil. Yeah, I'm gonna smile now and I'm gonna act evil and like be. I mean, he was, I think, I don't know, I don't want to say he was sadistic, but I think he just liked, you know, he liked the whole ritual idea of sacrifice and like human sacrifice and human suffering for the god or gods that he was worshiping, and that his people were worshiping. So to me, that villain wasn't really that interesting, because we didn't really get into sort of his motivations that much. He doesn't get a lot of dialogue, and he doesn't really end up being as memorable as the first villain, because the first villain did get a lot of dialogue, and you kind of got a sense of why he was really doing what he was doing. He was, you know, doing it because there is this power, and he can use it for, you know, for his side, for the Nazis. And in this, you get the sense of, yeah, he wants to have, he wants to somehow, you know, honor his gods and whatnot, but you don't really get into anything but that, for the most part. It seems like that he was just trying to use it as a power tool and as a way to, you know, kind of just be evil. I mean, it's evil for the sake of being evil, and not really for another reason. So again, over the top and good acting, but memorable, not necessarily. So again, I think they just had a better relationship. Again, Indiana Jones having the best relationship probably with ever that he's had with a character is probably the kid so far. I'll probably have to judge by the third one, and the third one may be better, I'm not sure. But for me, I was surprised. I thought it might be better, but again, it's kind of like a trade-off, you know? The first one had, I think, a better villain. The second one had a better relationship structure with Indiana Jones and the kid. The first movie had a better female protagonist, and the second movie did not, unfortunately. The plot of the second movie is a little bit more interesting, because it kind of does go into that sense of culture. You sort of feel sort of engrossed by it, and it feels this movie does feel like an Indiana Jones movie, because when I go to Disneyland and when I want to go on that ride, in the Indiana Jones ride, literally the sets look like that they could just come out of a ride. Like, literally, that's just how awesome it is. And you know, you do feel like, you know, you're on sort of like, you know, an amusement park. At one point there's one scene that almost plays out sort of like an amusement park. I won't spoil it for you, but I think you'll know what I mean when you watch it. And again, it's that kind of a thing. I just think that what encompasses the plot is a little bit more interesting and a little bit more engaging than in the first movie. Because at the first movie, it's just like he goes from one thing to the next, and then to the next, and then, okay, we get the climax. And the climax is basically just a car scene, a driving car scene. And in this one, you've got tunnels, you've got sacrifice, you've got alligators, you've got a tall bridge. You know, you have a lot of stuff that you can play with. And I think Spielberg tried to use those props to the bestest of his advantage, to make the climax really cool, because I really liked the climax. I thought the climax was really interesting, and how it sort of plays out. And for the most part, it's kind of like that mixed thing, you know. The first one is good in its own respects, and the second one is good in its own respects, but I don't think anyone is really better than the other. I think it's kind of a trade-off, because the second movie trades off for things. Instead of making everything better, it just makes some things better, and then other things end up becoming worse as a result of that. Not having really the memorable villain, not really having a really strong female protagonist. Those are kind of the big trade-offs, I think, for the most part, and how Spielberg handled it for everything that I could pretty much say about this movie. And again, you do get sort of Indiana Jones's more soft side here, I think. I think in the first one they were trying to make him really edgy, and here you kind of see a more soft side, because again, he does seem to care about these village people, and you kind of do grow more sympathetic towards him, and you do see that there's more to the character. And again, I think that for the most part, from what I've watched, is that they really didn't get better for the most part. I think pretty much this movie is on par with the first one. I think the first one maybe got a little bit of a higher rating. I think it was on IBM. I just saw it on one of the websites, but the second one got like 70.7.6, and then the first one got like 8.0. But that's really not so much of a difference. I mean, they're pretty much even. So don't go into thinking that, oh, just because they made a first one, it's going to be tons and tons and tons of loads better than the first one. No. What happens is sometimes what you get with sequels is like a trade-off. You get things that are better and then things that don't end up being as good as they were in the first one. So it's like this trade-off thing that I had and that I was thinking about when I was really watching this movie. I was literally thinking, okay, this is kind of a trade-off sequel here. You know, you got some more good parts and then you got some bad ones. So yeah, I mean, I think that's really all I can say regarding this film. It's still engaging. It's still Indiana Jones, and I think certain parts of this movie, in particular the plot, the character relationship between Indiana Jones and the kid, as well as as well as just the whole like scope of it and what they could do with the plot, and the whole background into sort of the culture was interesting, because I got a more sense of the culture than I did than with the first movie. But again, you still have that trade-off where the villain isn't that good, and then the female protagonist is just kind of used as sort of a laughing gimmick and doesn't really contribute much to the entire thing. So yeah, I think that's really all I can say. Any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. And until next time, bye-bye everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.